What's up, guys? I'm on a Subaru Forrester today. We're going to be doing rear brake pads, rear rotors. I'm going to walk you through a quick video on how I do this process on the road. It's pretty simple. You need some tools. I use the impact. You can use a four-way or whatever you have to get the lug nuts off. These are 19 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and get the wheel off. After that, set our tire to the side for now. You can see these pads and rotors are in pretty rough shape. They definitely need to be changed. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my 14 millimeter. That's the only size wrench you're really going to need on this. This is a 14 millimeter caliper bolts and caliper bracket bolts, or they're 14 as well. So I'm going to grab my wrench. Go ahead and get these broken loose. I only break loose the bottom caliper bolt because we're going to slide the caliper up, flip it up to get it off. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Got a little ahead of myself here. I went ahead and loosened this top caliper bracket bolt, loosen the bottom one because I'm going to use my battery powered impact to zip them the rest of the way off. Save a little bit of time. If you don't have power tools, do it by hand. It works just the same. Got my 14 here. Make sure you flip the right way. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Bottom caliper bracket bolt off. I'm going to go ahead here in just a second and we're going to flip this caliper up. Had to cut for a minute and get my glove resituated. Flip it up and we're just going to pull it out from the top with the slide pin and everything. I know it's hard to see, the angle of the camera is a little tough. Still working on getting the right angle on these. Now we're going to go ahead and get our caliper bracket bolts off. Again, they're both 14 millimeters. There's the bracket. Alright, our next step is we're going to go ahead and get this plug out of here for the parking brake adjustment. We're going to need to loosen that. A lot of times these parking brakes get stuck in place and they won't allow the rotor to come off. So if you, at all possible, it's always easiest just to go ahead and get these adjusted. The rotor comes off so much easier when you're able to do this. Thankfully on these Subarus, they give us a really large size hole to work in there to get to the adjustment screw. So you can see I'm going to turn the rotor upside down and you can see the screw in there. Turn my light on here in a second. Yep, so you see that little screw right there. So we're going to turn it up. That's going to loosen it or retract the parking brake a little bit. It should be good. I did push my plug down inside of the hole. You'll see in a second I'm going to get it out of here. This rotor comes right off. Yep, just like it should. Now if you didn't adjust that, loosen that parking brake adjustment, it wouldn't have done that. You would have had to fight it to get it off. So like I said, it just makes things easier. I did get my rubber plug out of there. You definitely want to replace that, otherwise you're going to get moisture and water and all kinds of crap inside of there once you replace this, and you don't want that to happen. It'll ruin your parking brakes. And, very easy to just pop it back in place, just like you'll see in a second. It drives me crazy when I see people's rotors and they're missing that plug. Yep, there you go. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we're going to grab our caliper bracket. I'm going to move my box over here. I don't want to get this customer's driveway dirty, get rust and stuff everywhere. We're going to pop our old brake pads out. You'll see here how stuck these pads are inside this bracket. They shouldn't be stuck like that. You should be able to pop them out by hand pretty easily. You can see I have to tap this one out with a hammer. This wasn't super stuck, but it still was stuck more than it should have been. You want your brake pads to move freely inside the caliper bracket. You do not want to have to force them out of there or force them in when you're replacing them. I'm gonna go ahead and get my slide pins out. We are gonna clean these a little bit. They weren't too bad, but we're gonna still clean them just a smidge. I'm gonna go ahead and get my drill, my wire wheel, and I'm gonna get this all cleaned up real good. Just one side. See how dirty and rusted up those are? See all that crap flying off there. Get things all cleaned up. You want these as clean as you can get them. You don't want all that rust and gunk on there, because that's what causes these brake pads to get seized up inside of that. Like I had to knock that one out. It's because of all the rust built up and stuff. You want them clean. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna clean these out a little bit. These weren't, again, they weren't super bad, and I don't want to get all this grease out of here that's in here. So I'm just kind of cleaning them a little bit. Make sure our slide pins don't get seized up. Our bracket's good, it's all clean. I'm gonna go ahead and get it bolted back up. My 14mm bolts somewhere. Go ahead and get these tightened up. I'm sure I'm going to get some wise remarks on here about torque wrench specs and why I didn't use a torque wrench. And been doing this for a long time. Those caliper bracket bolts are tightened down to around 80 foot-pounds. I can pretty much tell when they're tight enough, personally. But just for reference, most caliper bracket bolts are around 80 foot-pounds. Most caliper bolts are usually around 40 foot-pounds. So that's not accurate for every vehicle. That's just a rough estimate for most. But again, I've been doing this a long time. I know when a bolt is tight and when it's not tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and look for our hardware. We always use new hardware and get this put in. You're going to see here in a minute, I'm going to use a screwdriver to make sure that this hardware is snapped in the way it should be. Okay. Now these little ears that snap down inside of here, you want to make sure that they're pushed all the way back, otherwise they'll start to rub on the rotor, and you'll get everything together and try to take it for a test drive, and you'll hear this annoying scraping sound, and you'll have to take it all back apart and redo it. So it's always easier just to go ahead and take a screwdriver, snap this hardware in place, just to make sure everything's in there nice and snug how it should be, which it is. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my brake pads. I'll snap these in. These pretty much fall right in place the way they should. They don't fight me. Right in, check, okay. Now our next step is get these slide pins a little bit cleaned up and get them greased up and put it back in. I'm gonna go ahead and get them lubed up with grease here. This is the bottom slide pin. It's gonna go back in. I do use it to kind of spread some of this grease around at the top, but look at that shiny rotor. I'll go ahead and get some grease spread around on that top slide pin. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and get this piston depressed on the caliper. This is what I use, C-channel vice grips. Everybody's got a different method. This is just what I've used. It's what works best for me. So we're going to go ahead and get it pressed in. See, the piston is going in nice and easy, how it should. No caliper problems, which I already knew. The brake pads, usually the first thing you look for a bad caliper is going to be uneven brake pad wear. That's usually the first indicator that you have the caliper bad, which this did not have. The pads were wearing nice and even on both sides. So now that I got that pushed in, I'm going to go ahead and grab my wire wheel again. Somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to clean off the face or the ears of this caliper. Just like that, nothing crazy, just knock some of the dust and rust off. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure I got my boot back on top here. Slide that puppy back in, make sure everything's seated the way it should, and then I'm just going to put my bottom caliper bolt in. Get these tightened up. That's good. Alright, now I'm going to get box out of the way. I'll go ahead and get my wheel over here. I'm gonna clean up this wheel a little bit. I always like to do this if they're extra dirty on the back side of where the hub, where it bolts up to the edge of the rotor or the hub. You can see all that grime and crap that's built up there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just knock some of that off. Okay, pretty clean. So now I'm just going to go ahead, we're going to get our wheel back up, get it mounted, and we're going to take it for a test drive. We're going to make sure that we pump the brakes up when we get in before we put it in gear, make sure we got a nice pedal, and then take it for a test drive, and then we're going to roll on to the next. That's pretty much it. Appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you see, I try to post as many as I can. Feel free to shoot me a question or comment and I'll get back to you. Other than that, you guys have a blessed day. And if you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button and we'll get you on the next one. See you.